He thought it was just another inspection, until they asked him for a bribe. When this army vet refused to play along, they took his route, his dignity, and nearly his job. But they didn't count on what he'd do next. What happens when the quietest man in the yard becomes the one who won't back down? Marcus Green knew every mile between Joliet and Fort Worth like the back of his sun-scarred hands. For 6 years, the same route, the same rhythm. Load on Tuesday, unload by Friday. Long-haul quiet, the kind he liked. Diesel hum, blacktop under wheels, and his thermos of black coffee sitting snug in the cup holder. He didn't need much else. At 49, Marcus had the kind of discipline that didn't ask for applause. Gulf War veteran. Army logistics officer. Never late, never loud, he didn't bother anyone. He kept his cab clean, his books balanced, and his log hours straight. At Pine Ridge Freight, they called him Captain, half in jest, half in reverence. But Marcus didn't care for titles. He just wanted to drive. The trouble started on a Thursday afternoon in late spring. Oklahoma sun burned through the clouds like it had something to prove, and the 2-lane stretch of Route 69 shimmered with heat waves. Marcus was hauling a flatbed full of industrial generators bound for a contractor in Austin. Nothing out of the ordinary. His route sheet was clean, axle weight was good, and the tires had been double-checked back at the depot. That's when he saw the signs. Inspection station, 1 mile. He'd passed this way station before. A low-slung prefab building, some gravel lots, a handful of tired cones, but had never been flagged in. This time, the lights blinked red. All trucks stop. Marcus eased onto the shoulder, indicators ticking, and pulled into line behind a livestock hauler. Inside the building, 2 men in reflective vests stood watching through dusty windows. One of them stepped out as Marcus rolled up. "Driver papers," the man said without looking up. His name tag read Sterling. Marcus handed over his binder. Sterling flipped through it slowly, fingers smudged with grease, the faint smell of chewing tobacco in the air. "Where you headed?" "Austin. Drop off on Evers Road." "You know your back axle's riding a little heavy?" Marcus frowned. "I scaled out under limit this morning." "You're welcome to double-check." Sterling didn't answer. He just kept thumbing through the binder, slower now. Finally, he said too casually, "We can make this load a little lighter for a small handling fee." For a moment, Marcus thought he'd misheard. He blinked. "Come again." Sterling looked up, finally meeting his eyes. "Look, we got quotas, we got eyes. But you throw us a little cash, say 100, maybe 2, and I'll write you clear. Otherwise, this rig's gonna be parked a while." The words were smooth, practiced. Marcus didn't raise his voice, didn't flinch. He just stared at Sterling for a long, hard second. "No," he said flatly. "Run it how you're supposed to." A beat passed. Then Sterling smiled. Not surprised, not angry. Just that same tight-lipped grin that meant he'd seen this before. "All right, driver. Step out, please." The inspection dragged on for 45 minutes. Sterling walked the rig with a clipboard, scribbling nonsense. Worn tread, uncalibrated air gauge, reflector strip missing. Things Marcus knew were in order. When it was over, he was written up for 3 safety violations, cited, and told the truck was out of spec. "You're not moving this thing," Sterling said. "Get your company to send another truck." Marcus didn't argue. He just nodded once, got back in his cab, and called dispatch. The load sat by the roadside for 36 hours. Back in Illinois, Pine Ridge Freight wasn't happy. The customer was irate. Dispatch was cold on the phone. "What the hell happened out there, Marcus?" someone asked. "You were supposed to be our safest pair of hands." "I didn't do anything wrong," Marcus replied. But that's not how it played in the office. The story came back twisted. Someone said Marcus had refused cooperation. Another claimed he'd gotten aggressive. There was talk of him slipping, that maybe his military mindset made him too rigid. By Monday, he was pulled off long hauls and reassigned to yard duty, loading, organizing, running errands around the lot. A quiet punishment, but a punishment all the same. Marcus didn't protest. He just kept showing up on time, in a pressed shirt and clean boots, clipboard in hand. While younger drivers griped about DOT checkpoints and shortcut tricks, Marcus organized inventory and triple-checked tie-downs on loads that weren't even his. Eddie Tennant, 26, noticed. Eddie was one of the new guys, barely out of CDL school, all nerves and energy drinks. He'd heard the rumors too, that Marcus had caused a mess in Oklahoma, that he'd lost his edge, that he was a warning, not a mentor. But every time Eddie passed the yard, he saw Marcus, quiet, precise, and absolutely unbothered by the chatter. One night, during a smoke break, Eddie said to another rookie, "That guy used to run long hauls every week. Now he's stacking pallets." What did he do, really? The answer didn't come for weeks. But Marcus knew the truth wouldn't come from rumors. It would come from action. And he wasn't done yet. That weekend, in the quiet of his apartment, Marcus wrote a full incident report. Names, times, violations, and one quiet bribe attempt. He signed it, sealed it, and sent it to the State Bureau of Transportation Oversight. No drama, no fanfare, just the weight of integrity loaded like freight and sent down the line. The report was mailed on a Sunday. Marcus didn't expect a call. He didn't expect a response. In his experience, both in combat zones and company yards, the truth moved slow. And when it moved at all, it usually did so quietly. 3 weeks passed. Marcus split his days between sorting chains, patching tires, and updating inventory logs in the Pine Ridge yard. He spoke little, worked hard, and ignored the sideways glances. When drivers walked past with jokes or jabs, he didn't bite. He wasn't there to argue. He was waiting. One humid Thursday afternoon, the call finally came. Not to his phone, to the dispatch office. "Marcus Green," said Denise, the receptionist, handing him the receiver. "Someone asking for you. Said it's about a follow-up." He took the call in silence. A calm, low voice spoke. Female. Professional. "Mr. Green, this is Agent Dana Wallace with the Illinois State Bureau of Internal Oversight. I'd like to speak with you. In person. You free this weekend?" Marcus hesitated. "Depends where. There's a place just off Route 44. Old truck stop. Coffee's bad, but the booths are quiet." She hung up after giving the time. No more questions. No promises. That Saturday, Marcus drove his own pickup. A dusty Ford Ranger with a cracked dashboard and a prayer card tucked into the visor. Down the highway until the buildings thinned and the road turned soft with weeds. The truck stop was half forgotten, the kind where the coffee burned and the napkins were already stained. A pinball machine blinked in the corner, and the waitress called everyone Han. Marcus took a booth facing the door and ordered black coffee. She arrived 5 minutes later, jeans, windbreaker, and a plain manila folder in one hand. Dana Wallace looked mid-40s, with keen eyes and the kind of stillness that came from listening more than talking. She didn't bother with a badge. She slid into the booth, ordered tea, and got right to it. "Your report," she said, opening the folder, "was specific, precise, and matched 3 others I received from out-of-state drivers mostly, all involving the same way station, all mentioning a man named Clay Sterling." Marcus nodded once. "You believe it?" She looked up. "I believe in patterns, and yours matches one that's been forming for months." She leaned in slightly. "But we don't have hard evidence. No video, no audio, and these guys, they're careful. The kind of careful that only comes with experience. Sterling's been on the state payroll 15 years. Lives in a farmhouse outside Rockville. No priors, no red flags. Cases of corruption in transportation enforcement are rare," Wallace added, her tone measured. "But in that stretch of the state, especially near Rockville, we've seen troubling patterns over the years. Nothing blatant, just enough to raise questions. And until recently, never enough to prove." She let that hang before continuing. "We can't move without more." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "So what do you need?" She studied him for a moment, then spoke slowly. "We need someone they trust to go through again. Someone they think they've broken down. Someone with nothing left to prove, except they're still standing." She paused. "You'd be wired. Small device, tucked in your shirt collar. You'd say no, same as before. Let them make the offer. All we need is the ask." Marcus stared at her. "I'm not a cop." No, she said. You're a soldier. And sometimes the line between the two gets blurry. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he glanced out the window, long-haul rigs blinking past on the horizon, the way they always had. He thought of the men he served with, the ones who were still out there, the ones who weren't. Finally, he spoke. I didn't fight in a war just to back down from crooks in a vest. Wallace smiled. Not wide, just enough. I'll take that as a yes. The retraining started the next week. Quietly, no announcement at Pine Ridge. Officially, Marcus was on personal leave. In reality, he was in a warehouse outside Tulsa, practicing scenarios with state agents and learning to operate the newest wire equipment. He brushed up on inspection codes, weight regulations, DOT language. Every detail had to be airtight. Wallace was there every session. Cool, quiet, focused. You'll get 2 runs, she told him. 1 clean, 1 active. First pass, you're just a face they remember. Second time, you bait the offer. Marcus trained like it was deployment. Back at Pine Ridge, the rumors didn't die. Some said Marcus had quit. Others claimed he was in rehab or had moved to Ohio to run a truck stop. Eddie Tennant didn't buy any of it. He watched Marcus's spot in the yard remain empty. The old Freightliner, the one Marcus always drove, sat quiet under a tarp. One evening, Eddie caught himself walking around it, brushing his hand across the hood, wondering what kind of man it took to just take the hit and never explain himself. Eddie wasn't sure what to think anymore, but he couldn't stop thinking. 2 weeks later, Marcus was back on the road. New load, same route, same highway. He rolled past the same gas stations, the same rest stops, the same little church with the white cross on the hill. The way station came into view like a bad memory on the edge of a dream. He kept the radio low, one hand on the wheel, wire tucked under his collar. Eyes forward. This time he wasn't just hauling freight. He was hauling the weight of truth, and it was heavy. Marcus rolled south through Oklahoma like he always had, quiet, focused, alone. The dash hummed gently, his eyes scanning every sign, every shoulder. The weight in the back of his trailer was legal, secured, routine. But the true weight sat just beneath his collarbone. A microphone the size of a thumbtack, clipped inside his shirt. First run was clean, just like Agent Wallace said. He passed the way station mid-morning. Sterling wasn't there. A younger inspector flagged him through after a brief glance at his papers. No small talk, no clipboard dance, just a tired nod and the wave of a hand. Wallace called him that evening from a secure line. That's good, she said. Let them forget you a little. Second run's what counts. He didn't sleep much that night, imagining in his head every step he would take and how the men would react if he was caught. The next run came 4 days later. Same load profile, different trailer, new VIN plates. Wallace and the state team had orchestrated every detail, right down to Marcus's fuel receipts and radio chatter. He hit the checkpoint around 2 p.m. Warm air, long shadows on the asphalt. A hawk circled overhead as he pulled onto the lot. This time, Clay Sterling was waiting. Marcus could feel the difference before the man even stepped outside. That same flat smile, that same calm walk. Sterling looked like someone who had seen this game play out dozens of times and didn't think today would be any different. Green, he said. Back again. Marcus said nothing, just handed over the binder, same as before. Sterling flipped through it slowly, like it was a formality, then paused. Axle weight looks generous. No changes since last week, Marcus said calmly. Sterling glanced up. Sure, but we both know these things shift. He let the moment hang, then leaned in, voice lower now. Look, I'll say this once because I like veterans. You're gonna get flagged again. Unless this inspection goes a little smoother than last time. Marcus stared straight ahead. I don't pay bribes. Sterling's mouth twitched. Just slightly. Didn't say bribe. Said smoother. There's a difference. Marcus met his gaze. You gonna write me up again? Sterling shrugged. Not if you've got 100 reasons why not. There it was. The wire caught every word. Behind the scenes, just past the tree line beyond the way station, Two unmarked state cruisers were listening in. Agent Wallace sat in one of them, headphones on, her pen frozen mid-scribble as Sterling's voice came through crystal clear. She didn't wait. "We have confirmation," she said into her radio. "Repeat, we have confirmation of solicitation. Initiating phase 2. Marcus didn't flinch. He just said, calm as ever, "I'll take the citation." Sterling opened his mouth, confused, but that's when the cruisers pulled in. One from the south, one from the north, with more official cars right behind them. Doors opened fast, badges flashed, voices raised. Sterling stepped back, stunned, as two agents approached from both sides. "Clay Sterling, you are under arrest for solicitation of bribery, obstruction of transportation regulation, and conspiracy to defraud the state." It happened fast, but not violently. Sterling didn't run. He just watched Marcus as the cuffs closed around his wrists. "Should have taken the 100, he muttered. Marcus didn't answer. He just turned and walked slowly back to his rig. He sat behind the wheel for a long time before turning the key, breathing steady, hands on the wheel like nothing had happened. But everything had. The story exploded by morning. Bribery ring at Oklahoma Way Station busted, veteran trucker blew the whistle, highway corruption uncovered. State officials among those arrested. Trucker refused bribe. Ended a scheme years in the making. Marcus's name was in the second paragraph of most reports. A few stations requested interviews. He declined most of them. The ones he accepted he kept short. "I just did what I was taught to do," he said. "Do the job right. Don't let fear call the shots." But the wave was already moving. Other drivers came forward with their own stories. The state opened a full review of rural way stations. Within days, 2 more inspectors in neighboring counties were placed on leave. At Pine Ridge, silence gave way to whispers, and then to stunned respect. Eddie Tennant read the article twice before it sank in. He was in the break room, a cup of lukewarm coffee in hand, when the story popped up on his phone. He stared at Marcus's name, at the photo of the way station, at the words, "Undercover operation." "Wait, that's him?" one of the drivers said, reading over Eddie's shoulder. Eddie didn't respond. He just shook his head slowly, almost in disbelief. That evening, after his shift ended, Eddie didn't go straight home. He found Marcus sitting in the back lot, alone beside his old rig. Not driving, just looking at it, as if reconnecting with an old friend. Eddie walked up, unsure what to say. Marcus turned slightly, eyes steady. "I heard," Eddie said quietly. "It was you." Marcus just nodded once. Eddie took a breath. "I've been doing everything fast, trying to stay ahead, keep moving, but I don't even know how to keep a clean logbook." "Not really." He paused. "Could you show me how to do it the right way?" Marcus looked at him, long and thoughtful, then reached into his glove box and pulled out a blank paper log sheet. "You learn to do things right," he said, handing it over. "Not fast." Eddie nodded slowly. "I'm ready." And in that quiet moment, beneath the sodium lights of the yard, something passed between them. Not just knowledge, but trust. A shift, a torch handed from one man to another, without any fanfare or noise, but with clarity and purpose. 2 weeks after the sting, Marcus was called into the office. The corridor at Pine Ridge Freight was quiet that morning. Drivers were already out on runs. Forklifts buzzed distantly in the yard, and the only sound inside was the tick of the wall clock above dispatch. Marcus climbed the stairs, clipboard in hand, expecting a routine meeting. Maybe a new yard assignment, maybe a termination. But when he opened the door, the owner of the company, Terry Langston, was waiting. Langston rarely came down from Chicago. Too many suits, too many calls. But today, he stood at the head of the long conference table, sleeves rolled, eyes serious. "Marcus," he said, "have a seat." Also in the room were dispatch manager Alexander Jenkins and HR rep Amelia Wilson. No one spoke for a moment. Then Langston exhaled and broke the silence. "I owe you an apology," he said. "Not just from the company. From me." Marcus didn't shift. didn't react. He just waited. Langston continued, voice low. When the complaints started coming in, I should have asked questions. I should have trusted your record, not the noise. You've been one of the most reliable men we've ever had. What you did, it mattered. Not just to the company, but to the entire industry. He paused, stepped forward, and placed a folder on the table. In light of your actions, Pine Ridge is formally restoring you to your original long-haul route. Effective immediately, your record has been cleared of any mention of disciplinary reassignment. And he motioned to Amelia, who opened another folder. We've nominated you for the State Award for Moral Courage in Transportation. It's not something we've ever done, but it's the least we could do. Marcus nodded once. Thank you. He didn't ask for more, didn't gloat, but in his eyes, there was a flicker, not pride, exactly. Just the quiet affirmation that standing your ground had been worth it. Langston extended a hand. Marcus shook it, and with that, the long road back officially began. The state ceremony was modest. No red carpet, no lights, just a room in a community center outside Springfield, filled with drivers, DOT officials, veterans, and a scattering of family members. Marcus stood stiffly in his pressed work shirt while Agent Dana Wallace introduced him. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't make demands. He simply refused to bend, and in doing so, exposed a pattern of corruption that had gone unchecked for years. When they handed Marcus the plaque, he accepted it with both hands. Just with a quiet, clear sentence. I did what I was supposed to do. That should be enough. The room rose in a standing ovation that felt less like applause and more like respect. Back at Pine Ridge, the tone had changed. The whispers were gone. Now, when Marcus passed through the lot, people nodded in recognition, as if they now understood what kind of man had been beside them all along. Eddie Tennant had changed, too. He started coming in early, asking questions. He no longer bragged about squeezing hours or dodging way stations. He began logging by hand before switching to the tablet. One morning, he even bought a small level to check trailer tilt before departure. You double-check everything now? One of the other rookies asked him, half-joking. Eddie shrugged. You learn to do it right, he said. Not fast. He didn't mention Marcus, but it was clear he was doing what he learned from him. 3 weeks later, Marcus rolled out again. His first long haul back on the Fort Worth route. The early morning sky was still bruised with the last hints of night. Fog drifted low across the asphalt as the truck rumbled to life. A brand new Kenworth sleeper cab, a quiet gift from Langston, gleamed under the yard lights. He climbed the steps, settled into the seat, and checked every dial, every gauge. Old habits, good habits. Outside, Eddie stood by the garage, arms crossed, coffee in hand. He watched as Marcus released the air brakes and pulled slowly toward the gate. Their eyes met for a second, just a nod, but it said everything. Marcus eased onto the highway. The road ahead stretched clean and long and open. He didn't blast music, didn't make a call. He just let the hum of the engine fill the space. Somewhere past the edge of town, a hawk soared over the fields. The kind of sky you don't see unless you've earned it. The kind that rewards the patient. The way station in Rockvale was permanently shuttered now. Orange barricades stood where corruption once sat. And somewhere, policies were being rewritten because one man refused to play along. But Marcus didn't think about that. He just drove. Mile after mile, the fog lifted. The weight, the real weight, was finally gone. This story reminds us that doing the right thing isn't always easy, but it always matters. What would you have done in Marcus's place? Let us know in the comments. And if this journey moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. See you next time on Embrace the Journey.